All right, it was fence building around the law of God. Now let's take a look at an example of this in the Bible, of Jewish law, Jewish tradition, the oral law. Now this story you're familiar with. It's when the sheet was handed down from heaven of unclean beasts. And God said, "Rise, Peter, kill and eat." And Peter said, "No, not so, Lord. I've never eaten anything unclean." You know, that's not what a lot of people would say, but that's what Peter said. Okay, Acts 10 and verse 28. "And he said to them, you know how that it is unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come into one another's nation. But God has shown me that I should not call any man common or unclean." So where is this law at in the Bible? Because Peter, in speaking to his audience, said, you know how that it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come into another one nation. In other words, to associate with the Gentiles. It was Jewish tradition. It was part of the oral law that existed when Jesus walked this earth. Okay? Another example, Luke 6 and verse 1. "And it came to pass on the second Sabbath after the first, that he went through the fields of corn, and his disciples plucked ears of corn and did eat, rubbing them in their hands. And certain of the Pharisees said to them, Why do you do that which is not lawful to do on the Sabbath day?" Do you know what they were accusing the disciples of doing? They're walking through the field of corn, okay, headed from point A to point B. And they grab a few, kernels of corn or whatever, pop it in their mouth and eat it. And they looked at it, the Pharisees, with their oral law and Jewish tradition and said, they're harvesting. They're harvesting a crop. They were not harvesting. They were not trying to earn an income. If they were harvesting, Jesus would have corrected that issue. But they were not harvesting, okay. But this is Jewish tradition, okay? A Sabbath day's journey. This is interesting. It says, but the Jews had a different way of interpreting the distance of a Sabbath day's journey. Was it from their own home or their town? If it was from their town, they could increase the distance from their home significantly. After all, what if the town itself was 2,000 cubits across and a person lived on one side of it and wanted it to go 2,000 cubits past the other side? Sometimes the Jews would also place food along a lengthy path and state that this was their home and go another 2,000 cubits. So you see how their own law could easily be corrupted and manipulated, and it was. And they did corrupt their own oral law and manipulate it and twist it to fit whatever they wanted. So what law did Jesus abolish? The tradition of the elders, the oral law of the Jews. Jewish tradition is what he abolished. Of course, it got him killed because they had more confidence in their interpretation of the law. They had more confidence in the fence building around the Ten Commandments than the law itself, than the Ten Commandments itself. They condemned Christ for healing on the Sabbath day. Now get this. John 5 and verse 8, Jesus said to him, "Rise up, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made whole and took up his bed and walked. And the same day, it was the Sabbath day. Now this is no coincidence. He deliberately did this on the Sabbath day to stir things up. John 5 and verse 10, "The Jews therefore said unto him that was cured, It is the Sabbath day. It's not lawful for you to carry your bed." Now his bed was not a 4-post canopy bed. It was a mat that you roll up and put underneath your arm. And he's telling, their tradition said it's not lawful for you to do that. Okay, Jewish tradition.
Check us out on the web at isthatreallyinthebible.com.